Hey, good evening, brothers and sisters. Happy to be here with you on this Friday night, May 15th. I was thinking about this today. It happens to be the 71st anniversary of my paternal grandfather's death. So I assume he's interceding for us with the Lord right now tonight. So happy to be here. I mentioned to the kids on Wednesday at Combo and everybody else that was there from around the world, I guess, that a decision had been made to move our first term, otherwise referred to as summer phase. And there was a committee that worked on this of students and faculty. And some of them are here tonight, so I want them to do the explaining of the rationale behind it and what we hope to accomplish. I mean, Craig White, who's the dean of the freshman level, Jim Duffy, who's the head of the middle division, the 7th and 8th grade boys and girls, and Michelle Tordo is associate head of school, and lurking somewhere in the background is our IT director, Dexter Lopina, who makes all of this stuff happen every night, every day when as we've been doing this thing virtually. So I think that's everybody, correct, Michelle? It's on?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think I'm going to put it in Michelle's hands, and you can share it any way you'd like.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I'll start with thanking Dex as well, who has turned into quite a producer as we've brought all of these events online, including Convo every week, and getting all the moving pieces together. So I just wanted to start out by telling you a bit about the conversations that happened in these committee meetings with faculty and students about this decision. So one of the concerns that the faculty had to start out with is being in New Jersey and knowing that our lockdown and how that gets released to a reopening will probably be a lot more careful and a lot slower than a lot of other places in the country, just by virtue of us being the most densely populated state in the union. So one of our concerns is if the release of lockdown is that slow, that students would largely still have to, with everybody else, be doing a shelter at home or have very limited places that they can go during the summer months, during June and July, when we'd usually be on break. So we talked about back in the day when we used to have summer phase that we started at the end of June, and said, what if we tried to do something like that this year, where we subdivided the summer with summer phase in the hopes that August there are more lifting of restrictions and families would be able to take advantage of that time rather than us be in school when we would usually be in August. So a think tank of faculty got together and threw some ideas around, and then some of those faculty members brought together a think tank of students to talk about pros, cons, unintended consequences, some of which we'll talk about tonight. And I see there's already a question about one of them, and decided to move summer phase back to do July 6th to August 7th. There's time off before and after. There's enough time off before so that we can get the entire school geared up for a new school year, which usually we have 7 weeks to do. We'll do it a little shorter time this year. And then there's time afterwards where really our best hope is that families can get out in the world a little bit and release a little bit of all of this locked-inness that we've been experiencing. Duff, do we have some questions to start out with?
We have one question already. Question is asking, although an earlier summer is great for students that did not have anything scheduled, what about students who have summer programs that have moved to an online format or have a job or internship that's planned for the summer? Are there any accommodations for those circumstances?
Absolutely. I think we handle that just like we would during summer phase when it's usually regularly scheduled. To email the head of your division as well as me. This is what's going on. I applied to this program. This is what I'll be doing. These are the hours, the days, etc. And go through the process of petitioning for absence. The good news, I think, probably about some of the online programs, there may be some time that overlaps with our school day, but we're going to keep the schedule that we have now with 3 days a week of synchronous classes and 2 days a week for the asynchronous learning to allow for the pace of instruction being different online, to allow for the individualized learning, both self-learning as well as one-on-one with teachers or in small groups on those asynchronous days. So hopefully there's a little more wiggle room than when somebody actually goes away to a program. But please do reach out to the dean of your level as well as to me with that information, and we'll work from there.
For those, by the way, can I jump in, Duff, before you give another question? For those
Go right
who
ahead.
are not ancient, even though I already did, right? For those who are not ancient like I am, for years and years and years, probably maybe 35 years, the summer phase actually began the end of June and ran until the end of July or the very beginning of August. So it's just being positioned back where it was for 35 years. So we've had experience with this, with summer programs. You have to make sure that the summer programs that you think your son has or the internship is actually going to happen, because a lot of those things may be changed or maybe virtual as well, if they can do it virtually. But this is just a return to what we've had experience with for 35 years. Go ahead, Doug.
The next question is, I think, better for Craig. Craig, the question is, when do freshmen start?
Freshmen will begin their orientation and classes with the rest of the prep division. So that would be July 6th.
And this is not a question, Craig, but maybe if you could speak a little bit about the freshman orientation.
The orientation for the freshman class will also begin during the summer. Parents should expect there to be activities or meetings that will take place through a virtual medium, Zoom and or Google Meet during the month of June. We recognize that lots of the young men who are in public schools are probably still in school, so we're respectful of their time and their schedules to the best of our ability, but just keep in contact with us. Make sure you're following your email and any notifications that are being sent out, and then you should be kept abreast to what's going on.
Tell them to get their sleeping bags out, because they're going to sleep on the floor in their room or on the living room or under the dining room table. It doesn't matter to us as long as they're in their sleeping bags, and we'll make sure the parents can help us to prove that they did that, and then follow up for other things on what a virtual overnight looks like. We're in the process of figuring it out, and we may make history with it. So get the sleeping bags out, guys.
So there are a couple other questions about the hours of the school day and whether it's 3 days a week, 5 days a week.
Sure, I'll take that one. We're going to keep our same schedule with one exception that we have now. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will be those synchronous class periods where we start the day with group and convo and go to our classes, but with the exception of classes being 60 minutes instead of 45 minutes as we have now, in recognition that it's a 5-week term. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, teachers will still hold their office hours, clubs will meet, activities will meet. There'll be opportunities for students who have work to complete for their classes for them to do that, whether on their own, in small groups, or with their teachers in office hours, and time for all these types of meetings that occurred, such as the ones that helped us settle in on this as our best possible solution to a situation that schools are going to have to face in September, most of the rest of the school world, and we're just able to get a jump on that now. And we're also planning for all the, it seems like a million possible eventualities in September, depending on what guidance is from the government, from the CDC about physical reopening of schools. So summer term will look very much like it does now, just 60-minute classes. One thing I do want to encourage is, if your child has a device that has been giving a hard time, maybe the camera's starting to fritz out or the microphone, to whatever extent you can work on getting that solved, that's a really helpful thing. I realize how much we depend on computers. My husband and I share a laptop. And I had this thought last night, oh my goodness, what if this breaks? So I realized that it's our lifeline right now. One thing we are going to have again in a couple weeks is a delivery of some Chromebooks that we were able to use our federal funding to buy technology for students. So once they become available, I will send an email out to the school community, and then Mr. Lopina will help me match up students who have a technology need that they can't meet at home with devices as they come in.
Okay, a couple of questions about virtual, which we've addressed. This summer will be virtual. We don't see any way that the state will allow people to gather. So just to confirm, that is going to be virtual. Looking for questions here. There's a question about the freshman trail. Will they be doing it next year? Will they do it prior to next year?
Who's answering that?
A lot of our determination in being able to do that depends on what is coming out of the federal government and the state government. Obviously, the priority is making sure that the kids are safe. So we will, it's definitely happening. I can say that. The class of 2023 will hike the trail. What it looks like and when it happens, we don't know right now. But it will happen before they graduate. So parents, just be patient to the best of your ability. We will communicate the plan for that when we have more information.
All right, Michelle, there's a question here about textbooks. What about textbooks for the summer classes?
Great. So we worked out a little bit of a plan for that. What's going to happen is when the kids get their summer schedules, and this is really more geared towards upper division 1, upper division 2, and senior students. Some classes they have require a novel or a book that usually we would purchase and hand out to the student. In this case, we're going to do one of two things. One, if there is an e-copy of the book that we're able to distribute legally and safely, that will be pushed out to the students for those classes. Otherwise, if a student needs to purchase an ebook or a physical paperback book, we're going to offer a credit on the fax account for that family to cover the cost of that. So usually we would handle that in-house, but because it's impossible for us to order books and distribute them from school because of congregation issues and having people coming into the school, and with all the social distancing guidelines, we'll be able to handle that fiscally by offering that credit for students who do have to get those books. And the good news is this: the used book market is rocking. You can get used books, which is great for the environment, great for your pocketbook, and you'll be able to get a credit for that.
Okay, similar to the earlier question, this one is specific about what if a vacation was planned during one of those weeks in July.
Communicate with us. Let Duff know if your child's in the middle division. Let me and the level dean know if your child is in the prep division. Let us know what's going on. There's so many unknowns with this situation. As a scientist, I live in the gray area a lot of the times, so maybe I'm a little more comfortable with it. But we don't know what's going to change between now and your vacation plans. Goodness, I hope you get to go on vacation. I hope we all get to. Just communicate with us and let us know what's going on. And as we get closer to those events, we'll figure it out.
And to piggyback on that, that goes for summer employment. There was another question about that. Just communicate with the school and we'll work on those. International students, what will be the protocols or rules to follow up so students are on time?
I don't know what on time means, and I don't know whether that all depends on the U.S. government and immigration status. So when we have more information on that, we'll know how to respond to it. I have no idea who's going to be allowed back in the country, when they're going to be allowed in the country, or if they're going to be allowed in the country.
Okay. Father, there's a question. Will the girls' division start on July 6th as well?
Yes. For the 5,254th time. Yes, it will start on July 6th. Let me jump in here too, because I was talking to somebody today who is my brother from another mother. We grew up together in more or less in the same house. He was shot down in the Vietnam War and spent 6 years in the custody and hosted by the North Vietnamese. Spent about 2 of those years in solitary confinement under tremendous duress and ugly torture. And he escaped from North Vietnam, was recaptured, and that made things even worse for him. And so we were talking today, and I hear this a lot from people. When are things going to return to normal? And my opinion is they're not. So if you're sitting home waiting for things to return to normal, that's not happening. And number two, that implies going backwards. So those of us here at school have no interest in going backwards. We're interested in going forward and to see what life is going to be like going forward. But my friend, my brother that I was just referring to, we were talking today, and he said, listen, this is the way it works. It's relatively simple. You either learn how to adapt, adjust, and reassess, or you die. In another circumstance, you either had to learn how to adapt, adjust, and reassess, or you get killed. But so if we don't learn how to adapt and adjust and reassess situations, given the present pandemic, given the churches continuing to shrink from the challenge of educating young people, which makes more and more schools close, if we don't learn how to adjust and adapt and reassess, we'll die. And actually, it's my job to help to do that, to learn how to adjust and adapt. And so far we've been doing all right, and we'll continue to do that. So, the girls will start on July 6th as well.
So in the similar, there's a question about middle division, which I can answer. Middle division also starts on the 6th. So the term, there's falling all over my words here. There's a question about, can the summer schedule be distributed? Starting on July the 6th, ending on August the 7th. If you look on the school website and go to the calendar, it's already there. It's noted, middle division, prep division, summer phase begins, and it even notes that it begins virtually. We have a question about, will graduation be rescheduled?
There's a committee working with Mr. Jean-Baptiste, the college guidance director and dean of seniors, about graduation and what to do now to recognize seniors and get them their diplomas versus what the class wants to do going forward in terms of their celebration or potential celebration together as a class. So there are students and faculty working on planning out for that as well. You might have heard that the governor has talked about those wave parades when people drive past and wave to people, and he's stressed that you have to stay in cars for things like that. So we know that getting together physically, even with social distancing, is really not possible at this point. But the students, I'm sure, will lead us towards what they would like to do in the future when we're able to be able to celebrate themselves as a class and celebrate them their passage forward.
I'm aware from a conversation with Mike Scanlon and maybe Didier, somebody, that the kids, the seniors did not want any part of getting their diplomas if they had to get it by some kind of flimsy method. But we were talking to the adults were talking to them and said, listen, you may not want to get your diplomas until you can all get them together, but your parents may want you to get your diploma. So trying to work that part out is one of the things that's going on right now. So because the kids want to do it all together, not surprisingly, because one of the things we work on so hard is a sense of community and togetherness. So that's what we're working on. And when you hear certain things are being worked on, I don't know whether the question was asked by an adult or by a kid. Can you tell?
I cannot tell. I see the name, but I'm not sure who it is.
So the challenge is that an adult's process is completely different than a kid's process of solving problems. And if you're a type A personality, like some people on the screen, not me, you can decide who they are, who wants to solve 42 problems in one day and can't go to bed at night until the 42nd problem is solved. I make a list of 42 problems and lose the list in about 3 minutes. But if you're a parent who is a problem solver like that, these moments of the pandemic and disjunction in the way we live can drive you crazy. And the kids' process is completely different. It may take them 42 days to solve one problem. So we're working, trying to be respectful of the kids' desires, the kids' problem-solving process, so that they can feel like they've really worked on stuff and done things. The adults are kind of trying to run alongside of them. Or in some cases, and with the girls' division, I'm just trying to run fast enough to stay one step behind them and not lose ground. So it's a process question that's important, and I know it can drive some parents crazy, but we will get you the information as soon as the kids and the adults are sorted out. Go ahead, Duff.
Okay, Craig, I think you can handle this one. If not, I know I can because I was on that call the other day with them. How or when will, I'm assuming this is new freshman students, receive their credentials to access digital learning? Will it be sent via email or through the Zoom meetings they've been having? And the follow-up to that is about choosing their elective classes.
Yeah. Mr. Molina and Mr. Gallo are working lockstep to make sure that the students get their credentials as they're moving through orientation. Some of the kids already do have them. We just did a first round. And as you finalize your admissions process with the admissions department, Mr. Gallo and Ms. Lamort, that information will get sent to us, and then your son will your son or daughter will get his or her credentials, online information to be able to access Google Classroom, the whole suite of Google Classroom, and their Gmail accounts. So just pay attention to the admissions information that's coming through as you're moving through the admissions process. And we'll make sure you get that. With respect to electives, this brings up the topic of assessments. There will be several orientation assessments that will happen in the coming weeks. And one of those assessments will be your son or daughter selecting their electives and classes for the fall semester. Ms. Tordo already created the form. It's already been sent out to older students, and it's just waiting for our incoming and our beginner students to take that assessment and to pick and choose on their own. So it's a Google form. You will receive it via email, and then you'll be required to fill it out. And as Ms. Tordo always says, if you neglect to fill it out, we will choose for you. So just make sure you're paying attention to that.
This is a question from a current student about community service requirements. Considering we can't go out, how will community service requirements be handled?
You're muted. Michelle.
Yep, now I got it. My new wireless mouse, not so good on connecting. So I think I saw that with Sergio. Obviously, you can't go out and do a full community service project right now. Luckily, I know your class here, and I know you have plenty of time to get that requirement in. Also, I encourage any current student who's on the chat tonight to check out Mr. Adabato's Community Service Challenge that he issued to the entire school, where you can do some service in your own home. And service does definitely start at home. And I bet every mom, dad, aunt, grandma on this YouTube live tonight has something for all of you to do.
So one of the things you can do is not eat all the Oreos at one time and leave some for your brothers and sisters. That's one of the things you can do. The double stuffed Oreos, so you get to weigh 7 pounds more, or 15 pounds more than you did when you left, and your brothers and sisters are fighting to get one.
Okay, there's a question here about financial aid or grants. Who do I contact? You can simply call the front desk at 973-792-5739, and your call will be directed to the appropriate person. Question about uniforms. My boys are new students with mostly everything closed. How should we make arrangements to purchase uniforms? I'm on Flynn and O'Hara's site. I'm trying to see if they have anything about shipping.
Cass just posted in the chat that uniform information will be posted online in a couple days, and that they're working out all those details with the vendor.
Okay.
So keep a lookout on sbp.org for that information.
And if he's a freshman, if he or she coming into either the Benedictine Academy, the girls division, or to the St. Benedict's boys division. Don't let them wear it until they've earned it. That's all part of the freshman, which somehow we've slipped into calling the orientation. That's all part of the overnight and the virtual overnight, and they're going to earn it before they wear it. So I'm asking parents to help out with that. If you want to let them try it on and take a picture, hide the picture. I never want to see it until they've finished the earning it.
So there was a follow-up question, Father, do the freshmen still wear gray? And if the answer is yes, but not until they earn their colors.
Correct.
Father, there's a question here for you from a parent. What do you need from parents to help the school through this?
If the parent can help me with what's this, does that mean that the pandemic and the virtual learning?
I don't know. That's all I have here.
See if they respond to us. So through the pandemic, probably what we need most is patience, because this is another interesting conversation I had today. Not to bore you with all my conversations, but with the same guy who was a prisoner of war, but it was provoked by one of our alums who's a kind of asynchronous thinker about things. And some of the problems we're going to run into, I'd be interested in Michelle's reaction to this, is remember, the quarantine was created not necessarily to save lives, indirectly to save, it was created so that hospitals could deal with the number of people who would need to be hospitalized as a result of the disease. So the social distancing, washing your hands, wearing gloves, that's all ways of helping to protect one another. The problem is some people, you hear people say this. I just had a family member of mine say to me, "Oh, I'm all getting itchy to get out. I'm getting itchy to get out." So this alumnus of ours was saying, I wonder what prisoners of war have to say about that circumstance, because they had to adjust, adapt, and reassess all the time because they couldn't get out, couldn't go where they wanted to, couldn't even move sometimes because they were chained down. How do you live through that? So to be able to help others. Now, I don't know what the stomach of the country is. That whether we have the stomach to say, okay, we're going to let 250,000 or 500,000 or whatever it is, people die so we can have herd immunity. If in fact there is immunity, I don't even think we know that. Do we, Michelle?
We do not know that yet. We don't know if there's immunity or how long it's conferred once you've had it.
So I'm going to try to come up with some ideas through some of these people who have had these confining experiences that may be tips for parents to both help themselves and to help their children to deal with the quarantine or the kind of regulations for the sake of the other that come little by little. So when we're able to go out, can we have the discipline to stay at a distance and those kind of things? Because just imagine this. We've been talking about this here. There's no school building built to have, well, very rarely anyway, to have 12 kids in it or 6 kids in the classroom. Most school buildings have 25 students in the classroom. Well, therefore, the classrooms aren't big enough to create social distancing with 25 kids. You just don't have the room. The geometry doesn't work. So what is school going to look like going forward? I need parents to be imaginative with us and to help to rethink the way kids go to school, and not to look at it as a disaster, but to look at it as an opportunity. We may discover things that we never would have discovered had this not happened to us. So patience is one thing I can ask from parents, and help with making sure we're continuing to carry out these practices that protect not only each other, but protect grandma and grandpa and other people who may be vulnerable because they have a pre-existing condition. Don't lose sight of what we're trying to do. And it's very easy to do that. You can get worn down, you can get itchy, You got to be able to adapt, readjust, and reassess. Or what happens? You die. Off.
Okay. Couple specific questions. So, Craig, is there going to be a communication or a meeting for incoming freshmen? There's a lot of specific questions that would normally get addressed in the parent orientation.
Yes.
Is the question for is there going to be one for parents or for students?
I think we could address both.
Students are
Question.
meeting
Yeah, some students are meeting now, and this is coming from a student. This question that I'm looking at.
The students are meeting every Thursday at 4:15. Where has he been? Or is it 3:15? Michelle, 3:15.
3:15, Father.
3:15. Where have you been? If you're asking that question, and you missed about 7 meetings. That's a whoops.
That's what.
What's that, Craig?
He's one of the kids that's just showing up. He's probably just deciding he's coming here.
Or maybe he was just admitted. I don't know that from Mario, but go ahead, Craig, with the adults.
Yes, parents. There will be orientation sessions for you so that you can ask all your questions and have all of your questions answered with respect to the overnight, how summer. I saw some questions about uniform, so I can say it flat out. Freshmen are not to wear once school begins. Even when we're virtual, they are not to wear school colors, no maroon, no gray of any kind when they're on camera. They have to earn that right, as the headmaster said earlier. And they should be in shirt and tie. Obviously, a polo is acceptable, but it shouldn't be raggedy. They need to be clean and well kept and professional, as if they were, going to be in an academic setting. So.
Okay, there was a question about college guidance, but I believe Mr. Jean-Baptiste answered it in the chat.
Yep, I saw he did.
Okay. There's a question about upcoming UD1s being able to wear black hoods.
I'll take that one. With respect to the members of the class of 2023, as I'm using Dr. Cassidy's words, I'm trying to take his brain. The trail was never meant to be a membership requirement. The trail is a graduation requirement. So every member of the class of 2023 will have to walk the trail and hike the trail in order to be able to graduate. Your membership requirements are based on the 3 A's: your academics, your attitude, your behavior, and your athletic commitments or your activity requirements. Okay. So long as you've met those metrics in those 3 areas and your faculty moderator and your group leader deem that you have met the membership requirement, you should be able to earn your black. That's a conversation that has already been rolling. Your faculty moderators have been given the metrics to assess whether you've earned the right to be a member of our community. So look out for that. I got an email from 2 faculty moderators yesterday that they're going to start setting up interviews with you guys shortly, so they can run you through all that information. So just pay attention to whatever your faculty moderators and group leaders are saying to you while you're in group just before convocation. And I'm sure you'll get an answer to that before this semester ends on June 5th.
Okay, Father, there was a clarification from the parent who asked about what they could do to help. Anything we can do to support the teachers or the students, time or resources. That's what this was referring to.
Okay. One of the challenges, I guess I would say, is for some kid. Now I don't know the specific challenge with your own child, but some guys struggle if they don't have some help with being up for convocation. The other thing you have to watch, if you are able, you can help, is that guys will appear in class. And then they'll either turn off their camera which you're not allowed to do, and play video games or do some other stupidity. Also, I think you can help by making sure, and this is not easy because you have a whole attitude among young people in the country, is make sure they're going to sleep at a decent time. Because you go to sleep because you have to go to work, either virtually or go to work, driving a bus or working in a hospital or caring for people that are ill or whatever it is that you do. So you go to sleep at a certain hour, and he's up until 3 a.m. watching Netflix or something. And it's a disaster, and it happens even before we were quarantined, and it happens even more now. So you can be a huge help by trying to create a reasonable schedule for your teenager, and not leave it to him or to her, because left to their own devices, they'll stay up just wasting time like you can't believe, and creating other messes for themselves. So number one, punctuality in the morning, which is a problem for a small number of kids. I noticed today the attendance at school was 100% attendance for the middle division. Correct, Duff?
That is correct, Father.
And 99.3, I think, for the prep division.
Correct.
But there's some stragglers at Convo at 8:30 because they can't get up on time because they've been up until the middle of the night watching Netflix. And when you start pressing them with questions, they'll admit it. So take their phone and take it to your room when you go to bed. And don't let them have it. And if they start screaming and yelling, they'll get over it. If they don't get over it, let them keep screaming and yelling. But I guess it's very important, because I noticed heads nodding of the adults here. They waste a lot of time after you go to sleep. A lot of time. So that's one of the things I think you can do to help us in support, because it's not easy going to school virtually, but we've got to adapt and get better and better at it, because that's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future. Even when we're able to get back together, you're not going to be able to get a group of 800 people together in one place at one time anytime soon. Don't you think, Michelle? Correct?
I do. Yeah. And Father, I think certainly Craig and Jim and I second everything you said about that. And one observation that I've made with some of the guys that hang out in my office who are very good students is that their sleep schedules are as much of a mess as some of the guys that don't perform well in the classroom. And one of the things I hear over and over again is not going to sleep until maybe 4 or 5 a.m., getting up, going to classes, being exhausted after classes, falling back asleep at 2 p.m., and sleeping till 7 or 8 at night. And then they can't fall asleep until 3 a.m. again, and it becomes this really vicious cycle. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well.
Yeah, listen, in this virtual learning, all the use of Google Classroom, I'm attached to all the middle division classes, so I get to see when some of the work was submitted. And just last night, I took a screenshot of it this morning on my phone, the number of students that submitted homework at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and 4 a.m. And the 4 a.m. guy was not at Convo. So we had 100% attendance in classes, but I was missing 7 middle division students for Convo, and he was one of them. But he was submitting work at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Next question.
Yeah, I have another question here, which actually ties in with what we were just talking about opening in September. Will Benedict's go to a staggered schedule as an option for social distancing, require COVID tests to enter the school?
This is all one of those things we don't know, because we don't know what the situation will be a month from now, really. So our job now as faculty members and as students is to figure out all these plan A, B, C, D through Q, and figure out ahead of time, if this happens, if we can have a certain amount of people in the building, this is how we can handle school. If we're not allowed to be in the building at all, if we can have this amount of people in the building, but they have to be this far apart, if we have to take temperatures. We expect to receive a lot of guidance about that from the governor, as we've gotten as New Jersey citizens throughout this entire pandemic. And we will continue to work with that and just be ready for pretty much any eventuality that we can imagine at this point.
I I've read two long communications, one from Robert Barchi, Dr. Barchi, the president of Rutgers University, and one from Dr. Nancy Cantor, the chancellor of Rutgers University here in Newark. And nobody knows what they're doing. No, they don't know what they're going to do in September because they have to wait and see what information is available and what's possible. They all have various scenarios. I'm in the process of putting together a group of people who, for a asynchronous thinking about what school may look like going forward in the future. And I'm trying to recruit 2 Navy SEALs, Miss Tordo and some people here, Craig White, and then a couple of other people who can think about what schools may look like. And it's going to change. Schools are not going to be the same as they were before this. So lots of exciting things going on if you thrive on confusion and uncertainty. But if you like certainty and regularity and everything, you either have to learn to adapt and adjust or reassess, or you can choose the option if you want.
Yeah, Father, questions seem to be drying up. I have 2 last ones here that are both for you. Mr. Holleran would like to know what the weather is like outside.
It's beautiful out here this evening on King Boulevard. As you can hear, there's right now very little traffic, and the sun is beginning to set over there in the west, and it's great. I have one of the elders that comes to Convo in the morning. She's 87 years old, and was very concerned the other day because I was sitting out here, and she said I didn't have a coat on, and was very concerned about me, that I should have a coat on because it was a chilly morning out here on King Boulevard. So, but this evening it's very, very nice, and I'm happy to report.
So the last question I have for you, Father, then is about the student that's walking up the stairs into the building. He's been doing that for weeks. Are we concerned?
Yeah, I am concerned about him because he seems to be, as a lot of other students and even some adults, at various points in our life, we have a tendency to get stuck, you see. And that's the big threat. In fact, the student who's stuck on the steps there at 520 is a good symbol for us, because if we get stuck and can't adjust, we'll die. So hopefully I can encourage him to get inside quickly, because he's struggled for the last couple of weeks and seems to be stuck there. But he will not be a representation of all of us, because we're not going to get stuck. We're going to keep moving forward. As the founder of Benedictinism in the United States always used to say, Duff, was forward.
Forward, always forward. Always forward. Everywhere
forward. Yeah. Always forward. So we're not going back. We're not looking to go back to the way things were. We're looking to discover the way things are going to be, and we're going to help make them that way. Is our hope, that we can help make a new way that other people may be able to benefit from, but certainly that our kids, their families, and extended families can benefit from going forward. All we're trying to do is do what Abraham was called to do. Abraham was called by God at an unexpected time when he was old, and like me. And although if there's kids watching this tonight, Duff, there are kids on with us, right?
There are students on, yes, Father.
I may be old, but I'm much more fit than almost all of you. Because I worked out again today for I don't know how many consecutive days and weeks I've done that. So I'm in top shape right now. But Abraham was called when he was old, and he said, come to a place that I will show you. And he began to walk in faith, trusting in God. And that's what we're doing. Trusting in God, walking in faith. And if we have high energy and we can adjust and adapt and reassess, the Lord will lead us where the Lord wants us. May not be where we expect to go or where we may want to go, but the Lord will lead us where we need to go to be of most service to as many people as we possibly can be. So I'm grateful for everybody who came tonight, for your questions, for your energy, and keep praying that together we can continue to do the will of God as we pray. We rely on our Muslim brothers who are fasting and their prayer, and our Jewish ancestors and our own as Christians, that together we can keep walking, climbing this mountain of faith, so that one day we all meet at the summit in the eternal embrace of the mystery of the divine. That's our hope, and that's what we're trying to do. So who's saying good night? Gracie?
It seemed like you just did, Father.
Okay. So thanks for coming. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Beth.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for being here. Pray for us. Courage. All right, help us in the name of the Lord.
Who made heaven and earth.